We all love the Avatar The Last Airbender series. But although this animated series was brilliant, it doesn't mean that it was perfect.
Avatar actually left quite a few unresolved mysteries and plot holes behind. Why don't we look into them right now?
Let's start with one of the most glaring plot holes in the series that almost no one noticed. In the very beginning of The Last Airbender, we hear the heartbreaking story of how the Fire Nation attacked the air nomads, killed them all, and destroyed their temples. It was all because Lord Ozai knew that the Avatar would reincarnate as an airbender, and since the Fire Lord didn't want to deal with him, he intended to kill him as a child. As we all know, his hideous plan failed, and Avatar Aang remained the only living airbender, stuck inside an iceberg for a whole century. It's a tragic story until you realize that it's actually impossible. Please tell me, Mr. Fullylover, how exactly did the Fire Nation attack the air nomads?
I don't think I can answer that, Mr. Scoffer.
Precisely. No one can. The air nomads' temples were built in very hard-to-reach places, such as mountaintops above the clouds, and some were even clinging to the underside of cliffs. How could the Fire Nation's army, who couldn't fly, reach their dwellings and destroy them completely? They didn't even have airships yet at that point. Did they manage to use their firebending to somehow skyrocket themselves to the mountaintops? Or did they summon dragons to help them? This was never answered.
Oh, that's a good one, Mr. Scoffer. Let me share another plot hole that's crucial to the show's main arc. We all know about the 4 nations of benders. Even The Last Airbender's intro told a story about them. But have you ever realized that there were actually more than 4 nations in the Avatar world? Let's count them together. They were air nomads who sadly became extinct. And then there's Southern Water Tribe, Northern Water Tribe, 2 separate Earth Kingdoms in Omashu and Ba Sing Se, the infamous Fire Nation, the Sun Warriors, as well as the Foggy Swamp Tribe. The latter 2 are considered fringe groups, but they still exist. So if I counted them correctly and didn't miss out on any other tribe or kingdom, there are at least 8 nations instead of 4. Correct me if I'm wrong. We can assume that they're separated into 4 nations on the grounds of what element they can bend, although it's still unclear if this is the case.
I have one more question concerning the 4 nations, Mr. Fullylover. It's explained in the series that the Avatar is always born in the next element. This means that after fire comes air, after air comes water, and so forth, all to maintain the balance of the elements. But what if the Avatar is born in another group, like the Sun Warriors or the Foggy Swamp Tribe, which are cut off from the rest of the world? I wonder if that has ever happened.
The animals that live in the Avatar universe are an even bigger mystery. All of them are hybrids of 2 animals from our world, and they're given names based on that. Like, for example, spiderfly, tiger seal, skunkfish, and many others. So my question is, if all of these hybrids are normal animals in the Avatar universe, and these species don't exist individually, where did their names come from? Does it mean that one day the Avatar universe knew what a spider and a fly were, and then they merged into a spiderfly? Or did they know what a tiger and a seal looked like in order to name an animal a tiger seal?
This is quite an interesting question, Mr. Fullylover, and it reminds me of a fan theory we discussed in one of our previous videos. It states that there was some kind of a cataclysm in the Avatar world that made all animals mutate like that. Although it sounds logical, it was never explained in the series. If you want to know more about the most fascinating fan theories about the Avatar series, check out this video, by the way. But meanwhile, let's move on to another plot hole. Did you realize that in one of the episodes, Aang forgot he could airbend?
Huh?
Let me explain. It happened when Team Avatar was to continue their journey from the desert to Ba Sing Se. They had a choice: take the shorter but more dangerous Serpent's Pass, or go on the longer but safer route via a ferry from the Full Moon Bay. They chose the second option because who wants extra danger when you're on a mission to defeat the super powerful Fire Lord? But they faced a problem immediately because Aang didn't have a passport and couldn't get a ferry ticket. He tried convincing the passport attendant that he was the Avatar, but the lady dismissed his claims, saying that she saw 50 avatars per day. So it seemed like there was no way for Aang to prove that he was the one. Or was there? He could actually easily have done it by showing that he could airbend. Everyone knew that the Avatar was the only airbender alive in the world, so the attendant would immediately have believed him.
Wow, I've never thought about that. But there was another thing about Aang that seemed strange to me. Remember Katara's necklace that she valued the most of all her possessions because it reminded her of her mother? When Zuko kidnapped Katara after invading the Southern Water Tribe village, he tried to bribe her with it and forced her to tell him where Aang was. Although losing the necklace was tragic for Katara, Aang's safety was more important, so she refused. As a thank you, Aang later crafted another necklace for Katara using flowers and Sokka's fishing reel, and she wore it a few times. But then, it suddenly disappeared. And obviously Team Avatar was able to retrieve the original necklace at some point, but it doesn't make Aang's gesture any less sweet. Did Katara just throw Aang's necklace away as soon as she got hers back? That's not very nice of her, is it?
I guess we'll never know what happened to it. But let's move on to other characters and talk about Zuko and Azula. Did it ever occur to you that it was very strange to see them walking around all over the place without anyone recognize them as Lord Ozai's children? I mean, he was probably the most famous figure in the Avatar world. He was the leading dictator, and he made sure that he was well respected and feared all over his territories. His portrait was in every history textbook and on every official building, so it seems weird that his children, Zuko and Azula, weren't famous. They could travel anywhere without anyone recognizing them. Even when they vacationed on Ember Island, no one paid them any attention. And meanwhile, as the dictator's children and future rulers, they should have been the most famous teenagers in the world. So either Lord Ozai did his best to hide their identities from everyone, for a reason we'll never know, or people around them just didn't care.
That reminds me of another member of the Fire Lord's family, Uncle Iroh. A high-ranking general and heir to the Fire Nation's throne on the one hand, and a laid-back man who likes to drink tea and play pai sho on the other. He's undoubtedly one of the most interesting and complex characters in the series, but even he left us with some unresolved mysteries, like the one about his baffling connection to the spirit world. Iroh reportedly traveled to the spirit world when he was young. He could spot spirits in the human realm, and at the end of his life, he consciously left his physical body behind and entered the spirit world to continue living there. Although it all sounds nice, we know that the Avatar is supposed to be the only human being able to communicate with the spirits. What was so special about Iroh that he could do it too? I mean, sure, he was spiritual and wise, but is that enough to enter the spirit world? The Legend of Korra briefly explains who can enter this world besides for the Avatar, but The Last Airbender didn't really give us any answers. And we know that Iroh was looking for his son in the spirit world, but what exactly happened there? I'm sure that it's a beautiful story that shows how Iroh turned from a ruthless general into the character we all love, so it'd be great to learn about it.
Yeah, a spin-off series about Iroh's past would be an excellent idea. So Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, if you happen to watch this video, take good note. And also, answer this burning question I have. Why did the White Lotus exist in the first place? We all know that it was a powerful organization whose members were some of the most influential figures in the Avatar world, as well as the most skilled benders. But if it was so powerful, and many of them could probably take down Lord Ozai with little to no effort, why did they never intervene in the events of The Last Airbender? It looked like they were happy enough just to sit back and watch a group of teenagers risk their lives trying to implement a seemingly impossible mission. The White Lotus did pretty much nothing until the very last moment when the final battle began. And what's more, we never learned how it was created, how it chose its members while still maintaining complete secrecy, and what was the primary purpose of its existence. So many questions.
I also have one more question, and it's about Firebenders. We know that they're the only benders who can create their element literally out of thin air by using oxygen. So unlike other nations, they use another element to create theirs. That's fine that they have this advantage over others, but it also looks like they have another one. After seeing how they behave in a battle, you might think that Firebenders are immune to fire. I mean, they throw it back and forth, hold it in their bare hands, but they never get burned. Sure, you might say that since they're firebenders, their skin is fireproof. But how do you explain Zuko's scar then? He got it because his father burned his face, which proves that a firebender actually can get burnt. Well, if firebenders couldn't harm each other, Agni Kai wouldn't make much sense, right? But still, were their palms and fingers fireproof or something?
Good point. Now, let me share one more plot hole with you. You'd only catch this one if you have some background knowledge in astronomy, so I'll try to explain it in detail. You remember how everyone said that during an eclipse, firebenders lose their bending power, and whenever Sozin's comet appears, they become more potent? While the first statement is understandable, since we know that firebenders take their power from the sun, the latter is somewhat questionable. In fact, comets generally consist of ice and dust, which means that they don't have anything to do with fire, which means that Sozin's comet couldn't really strengthen firebenders. Instead, it would more likely benefit waterbenders because ice is water, as well as earthbenders because dust is basically earth. What could help firebenders instead of a comet, you might ask? Well, astronomers say that something like Sozin's meteor would probably do the trick because science describes meteors as fireballs.
Gee, I would never have thought of that. Thank you, Mr. Scoffer, for explaining it.
You are always welcome, Mr. Fullylover. So, our dear viewers, do you happen to have answers to any of these unanswered questions?
Or did you find any other plot holes yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Cartoon Junkies.